We have some big news to discuss today as we have some major Toronto Maple Leafs free agency updates. Martin Jones came out and revealed that he does want to return to the Leafs, and it seems like the Leafs could have mutual interest in bringing him back. So we'll break that down, as well as some major updates on Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. Returns could be imminent for one or both of those guys. So we'll break all that down this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the 80% who are not subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 10,500. Thank you guys for allowing us to hit 10,000 subscribers. It means the world to Darius and myself. And thank you for the continued support as we produce these daily videos for you guys on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Darius, a lot to go over today. Free agency news, free agency updates. A lot kind of to discuss regarding Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, and a bit of a surprising one from Martin Jones, or on the Martin Jones front. And we've been discussing, and you specifically have been talking about how the Leafs need, in your opinion, at least 3 goalies to play in the NHL now. Joseph Woll could be one, Martin Jones could be another, and then depending what they do going forward, it could be the third. But let's just get into some of the talks now. We'll also discuss Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, and let's start with Martin Jones here. So you can see that it says the Leafs veteran third goalie is headed to unrestricted free agency, and while there isn't much to say about Jones, it would be a good idea to bring him back. And there's a report essentially came out from Martin Jones saying that he is interested in returning to the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's some mutual interest there. He obviously had a pretty good season, all things considered, starting with the Marlies and now heading up to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he played a good few games and really held it down in the meantime. But what are your thoughts on a potential Martin Jones return here to the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the Leafs, like you mentioned, and like I've talked about before, they do have to run with 3 goaltenders next year. I'm 99% sure that it's going to happen and that it should happen. I think the NHL is moving away from this thing where one goalie plays 68 games or 70 games or something like that. Crazy, right? So I think they're moving away from that, especially the Leafs. And they know that, I mean, Brad Living said it. Joseph Woll, he's having a tough time with injuries, staying healthy. So how can they help him? Getting a third option so he gets more rest, right? And I thought Martin Jones played great this year, had pretty decent numbers, was consistent. Like, yes, he's not the best goaltender, but he's consistent. And I think the Leafs need that, especially in a third goaltender. So if he signs for like league minimum or something, because again, he's 34, so you might get a little bit more somewhere else. But for his age, if he wants to stay in Toronto, which I think he does, there was a report that came out the other day from Joshua Cloak that said Jones and his family really enjoyed, Toronto, living in the bigger city. He developed a great relationship with Joseph Woll as well. So it sounds like he really would like to be back, and I think the Leafs would like him back as a third option. He was consistent. He likes playing here. It would be a very cost-effective option, so I could see Martin Jones returning to be a Leaf next year in like a third goalie role. He's not going to be a starter. He's not going to be the backup or anything like that, but I could see him playing the exact same role as he did last year.
Yeah, his family loved it. That's what the report said. It's in here somewhere as well. But yeah, you look at his stats. I mean, nothing too crazy, but his goals against average was solid. His games played were solid, and you can kind of see during his time with the Leafs, he went on a bit of a hot streak and delivered the Leafs some key wins. If we rewind the clock, what seems like forever ago, he was very good, and there was a time where he was considered the 1A guy because Samsonov was out of it, Woll was hurt / out of it, and now is Jones a good NHL goaltender? I don't know. That's the question that's going to be asked, but could he be a serviceable number 3? Probably, and that's where the Leafs want him to be if they bring him back on a very, very cheap deal. So let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this report. Basically, Martin Jones wants to return to Toronto. The interest seems fairly mutual, especially with Joseph Woll's injury updates. Now, this would be, again, like we keep mentioning, in the third spot, not number 1 or not number 2. Hopefully, they can still trade for a goaltender or make a big signing elsewhere. But yeah, that's the report on that. Now, Darius, let's get into the more, not more interesting necessarily, but some of the fun stuff regarding Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi, and there's some other ones here as well. We're going to be focusing on Domi and Bertuzzi, and this was in an article posted, and he basically predicts whether or not the Leafs will bring back Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. Max Domi seems to be the one that the Leafs are going to bring back, but when you look at Tyler Bertuzzi, their analytic model projects to receive Bertuzzi to receive about $5.3 million per season over 4 seasons, and he is one of the better forwards on the market. Now, the question is, do the Leafs want to pay that much to Tyler Bertuzzi when there is other guys on the market? That is the question up in the air. And then Domi, on the other hand, of course, he seems to enjoy life as a Leaf. And an actual article by Pierre LeBrun, notable insider of The Athletic, kind of said that they'll do what it takes to get it done. 5 or 6 years, $5 to $6 million, which is ridiculous, and it's not going to happen. But what we do know is that it seems like from every report and article that's coming out, Max Domi is going to return. Tyler Bertuzzi is still up in the air. And Darius, when you look at some of these guys' stats, specifically Max Domi here, 47 points, 80 games, about a half a point per game player, a bit more than a half point per game player. But his leadership, his veteran-ish presence was really seen in the playoffs when he was winning 90% of faceoffs in Game 5, I believe, and when the Leafs kind of came back there. What are your thoughts on Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi? Again, we have more time now to think about Tyler Bertuzzi. He's the biggest question mark. I think Domi's a no-brainer. Bertuzzi, on the other hand, which I'll get into his stats in a minute, is a bit more confusing at $5 to $6 million a year.
Domi is a no-brainer, but at the right cap hit. And I think this is a bit of a test as well, because there might be information being floated out there for, by his agent or something. I'm just saying that's speculation, but there could be some of that going on, because $5 to $6 million for Max Domi is absurd. Like, it's just not going to happen in Toronto. It might not even happen anywhere else. There was reports that Seattle's interested in him as well. So we'll see. If he wants to be a Leaf, it's not going to be for that money. If he can get that money, I wonder if he does go to Seattle or something like that, if they're willing to pay him that, because he was a very effective player for the Leafs this year. But if you look at his stat line, while impressive for his role, to make that type of money, it just doesn't make sense. I don't think he brings enough to make that type of money, especially on the Leafs. It's just not going to happen for $5 to $6 million on the Leafs. But we did go through that Frank Saravalli article as well that did mention it could be in the 3 to 4 range, which I would be much more open to, especially with the salary cap going up, because I thought Max Domi was pretty good. So I think it's a no-brainer if the salary is right and the terms right. And then in terms of Tyler Bertuzzi, still very much up in the air. A lot of teams are interested in him, and I think a lot of teams would be willing to give him top end dollar, like exactly what he wants, 6-7 million, something like that, for 6 years. I don't know if the Leafs are willing to do that. I don't know if it would be smart to do that, because he is 30, I believe. So yeah, he's going to be in his 30th year this year coming. And again, half a point a game player. It took him a long time to figure it out with the Leafs, but he ended up doing it. So I think if you were to bring him back as the Leafs, he would have a much better season after getting acclimated last year, the second half of the year. So obviously you'd look to, have him retain him, but is the money right? I'm not sure if it is with Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, I mean, the $5 to $6 million for Domi seems crazy. Different reporters, and that's kind of the issue so far, is that you can see here, like, Pierre LeBrun saying $5 to $6 million. You have other reporters, Frank Saravalli, saying $3 to $4 million. It'll probably, which is hilarious to say, it'll probably fall somewhere between the $3 million mark and the $6 million mark. Maybe 4.5, maybe 5, but even that seems not necessarily too pricey for Max Domi, but maybe too pricey for Toronto Maple Leafs liking of Max Domi, even though Domi has made it clear he does want to return to Maple Leaf. Kind of like Martin Jones, and even, Mitch Marner made it clear he wanted to return to Maple Leaf. So unfortunately, that's not all going to happen, but I don't know. It just becomes a very interesting topic of discussion when you're discussing, Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, Samsonov is probably gone, Connor Dewar is going to return, Noah Gregor's up in the air, Martin Jones, there's so many free agents that the Leafs need to get retain the assets for, especially Connor Dewar, but he's an RFA, so that's why we're not talking about him too much. He was obviously a great acquisition, but Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi, that is the biggest question mark going into the season. And I'll show you this one more time. You mentioned it, like, we're talking about Bertuzzi like he had a crazy point per game season when he really didn't. Now, obviously, he's not necessarily always going to be a point per game player really much in his career. But Darius, when you look at it from, again, you can't just look at his stats, but these are not the stats of a player that I personally would want to pay $7 million to over 6 years, even though he's shown it in the past with other teams and he did okay in the playoffs. It's just something that's a bit risky for me and gets me worried that if you pay him that much money, you're kind of sticking your team in the point where it might be hard to make other signings going forward that could actually put your team over the top.
I would like to see what Tyler Bertuzzi looks like under Craig Berube, though. It's going to be a different style of hockey that I think lends well to Tyler Bertuzzi's style of play. Whereas last year, and we've said it, or I've said it, and you can see it, where a lot of guys that they get with grit and all these intangibles and stuff, like Tyler Bertuzzi, come to the Leafs and then start to play exactly like the Leafs. Like, they forget who they are. So I think with Craig Berube, that style of hockey, I would like to see Tyler Bertuzzi in that style. I think he could have a better season used in a different role, but we'll see. We'll see, because if the money's not right, then it doesn't make sense for the Leafs long term anyway. But to go back to Max Domi very quickly before we wrap it up, I could see a higher dollar amount, maybe 4.5, because the salary cap's going up if you sign him for a longer contract, maybe 3-4 years, something like that. But still not sure that makes sense. I think if you want to be a Leaf, it's like, hey, buddy, 3.5, 4, maybe. So yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be interesting. This is something to keep an eye on for the next coming weeks, coming months, really, depending how long it takes to get it done. With that, I'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,500, and we'll see you soon.